Martin, thank you for your time. I know that you are a very, very busy man. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always good to see everything from an international perspective.
Exactly. Let's kick off with, we have few topics to discuss, but I would like maybe to start with Trump. A lot of things actually happened since our last talk, but the most significant is definitely Trump presidency. We are seeing his first steps, and I would like to hear your opinion on a few of them. First, lower dollar and tariffs, and plan to explicitly use the revenues from higher tariffs on imported goods to help pay the extending trillions of dollars in tax cuts. How do you see that going forward?
It won't work. Yes, he's correct historically. Before the income tax, the country was funded with tariffs. Okay. However, we also didn't have all the socialistic programs. Social Security, Medicare, healthcare, all this stuff. It's far bigger and could never be, funded with tariffs. I mean, that's really kind of absurd at this stage in the game. And I think what he doesn't realize, he's tapping into something that's real, but doesn't quite get it. We really do not need income tax at the federal level. Why? It's really a barbaric relic from the past. When money was actually physical gold and silver, the king needed taxes to get some money back. All right? Why do they tax us now when they create the money, and then they're taxing to get some of the very thing that they create back? It's really quite absurd. And secondly, all right, it used to be, it was theoretically cheaper to borrow than to print. All right. But again, the problem has become, you just take, we've gone through, massive debts that are now, like, I think 326% times GDP globally. There's no intention of paying this off. I mean, it just goes year after year after year. I mean, eventually the interest expenditures will consume everything and bring down governments. But really, before, when we were on a fixed exchange rate with Bretton Woods, if you had a $100 U.S. government bond, you went to the bank, you said, could I borrow against it? It was illegal. All right, so the theory was, yes, it would be less inflationary to borrow because it wasn't money. But today, you want to trade futures, you post government T-bills. So government debt is just money that pays interest today. So it really has changed a lot. So you take Keynesian economics. I had a discussion with Paul Volcker. He even did a book, I think in 1979. You can search our site. It's called The Rediscovery of the Business Cycle. After this 1974 crash, even Paul Volcker came out and said the new economics, Keynesian economics, failed. Why? Because when Keynes came up with the idea in the 30s, U.S. had a balanced budget. All right, today the governments are the biggest borrower in the room. So if the central bank raises interest rates to fight inflation, guess what? It creates it. Because nobody in government is going to stand there and say, oh, gee, they raised interest rates, they want us to spend less. Never going to happen. All right, so...
Actually, you're very right about this. And Donald Trump renewed his attacks on the U.S. central banks after the officials left interest rates unchanged despite the public calls for them to cut. In a social media post, he accused the Federal Reserve and its chairman, Jerome Powell, of mishandling the economy, saying that they have failed to stop the problem they created with the inflation. Yeah.
It's absolutely absurd. I mean, it's like basically somebody kills somebody, that's blaming the gun and not the person. You know, it's central banks have no control anymore. They don't control the fiscal side of the budget. So in Europe, Britain, wherever you want to look at, the government is creating more money through the debt, because now it is money that just pays interest. All right, the Fed can't stop that. No central bank can handle it. You know, and they're not going to come out and talk about this, because if people realize that central banks cannot stop inflation, they're going to go, "Oh my God, what does that mean?" You know, you would create more of a panic.
Yeah.
So they're really just going along with the ride. You know, they know they're trapped. I mean, this is just not working. And, you know, people were very hopeful when Trump came into power that we're going to, you know, drain the swamp and clean things up. It's not a swamp, it's an ocean. All right? And very noble ideas. All right, but it's too late. The spending's too great. It extends way too much. And he can bring in Doge and everything else, and that's very nice. But, you know, honestly, we just have to crash and burn. And you're going to reset governments globally. I would say by, you know, going into 2032. This system is just not sustainable. You got $1 trillion in interest expenditures this year. Okay, that means you got to pay interest on that trillion next year. All right, it multiplies. It's like mice having, you know, you get a pair of mice, next thing you know, they have 10 babies, and then they have 10 babies, and then, you know, next thing you got a cage full of pet mice that are, you know, tromping to get out. I mean, this is the same problem. We're on an unsustainable path.
Yeah, and we are seeing show for the public, not just with Trump. We are seeing all over the world. The last one was the shrinking of the public sector, and I saw your post from today and the headline, Trump's federal freeze. I mean, we are seeing across the globe, like I said, the same old story of shrinking administration, but it never happens actually, and it's getting bigger every time. Or do you believe that this time this could really happen?
No, I mean, look, he can bring it down like Milei in Argentina to some degree, but not enough. And you look at all the government employees that are out there, they're protesting already, filing lawsuits. Look, it's, you know, he even issued an order, you know, stop working virtually, you got to come back to the office. I mean, this has been 4 years after COVID. You know, look, that's what, you know, Klaus Schwab and COVID and all this stuff and the lockdowns, it was really for climate change. It was to stop people from commuting, going to offices, stuff like that. They wouldn't be driving. So then you have a real estate problem in the commercial area. A lot of places are vacant. I mean, this was part of the whole COVID agenda. But, you know, it's, you know, I wish Trump all the best luck, but it's just not going to pan out. And you are seeing this on a global scale. people are rising up and realizing something's wrong. They might not be able to explain it, but everybody in their gut knows something's wrong. I mean, in Canada, Trudeau have forced to resign. In Germany, you have the AfD running neck and neck with the union. And the problem that you will see is that they know that they are failing. And because of that, they become more authoritarian. So they clamp down more on, you just had Schultz at the Davos saying, oh, no, we have free speech, but not if you're the extreme right. You know, I'm sorry, you're basically, and who's the extreme right? His opposition. You know, that's not free speech. So, you know, and in Europe, you're seeing it, you know, oh, hate speech or whatever they label it. Basically, anybody that disagrees with them, you know, you got to be blocked. We had that in the States with, under our First Amendment, the government shall not. So what did they do? They called YouTube and said, hey, you know, anybody that criticizes us, kick them off, you know. So, oh, well, I didn't do it, they did it. And, you know, like I said, that's like shooting somebody and saying, I didn't kill them, the gun did. But this is the problem we have, and it is surfacing globally. And your France, the government fell. I mean, look at the French corporate rates went below that of government. And French interest rates for the government went above that of Greece. All right, this is the problem. It is systemic in the way we're running governments, and that's throughout the entire West.
Yeah, and when you say they are failing, you are right. And by watching few of your videos, I see that you really think that Europe is in big economic trouble. I mean, do you really see Europe failing first?
It's probably a toss-up between Europe and Japan. The problem with Europe is when they were forming the euro, they came to me. I met with them, and I said, okay, fine, this is how you create a currency. And they were telling everybody, oh, you all pay the same interest rate like the United States, blah, 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 all right? I told them, this is all, you know, fiction. That's not going to happen. You have to consolidate the debt and have a national debt for Europe to compete with the dollar. And I can tell you, because, you know, I was in the middle of all this stuff. Hermann Kohl from Germany, and you can Google this up, he admitted that he acted like a dictator. And he said if he allowed the German people to vote on joining the euro, he would have lost 7-3. So he took Germany into it without a vote. And his condition was, he knew that the German people would be against it because they fear that they would be paying the debts of Greece or Italy or something. Like, so he insisted that he would take Germany in, but no consolidation of the debt. And I warned him. I said, it's all you're going to do. And any trader would understand this. All right, okay, fine, you eliminated the currencies. If I was bullish Germany and bearish on Italian, I would sell their lira and buy the mark, all right? Okay, you eliminated the currencies. The volatility just moved to the bond market. I buy the bonds, I sell, you know, you didn't change anything. And I don't know, maybe they're just academics that have no trading experience or anything else. I mean, back in 2010 when Greece got into trouble with its debt, what happened? Immediately, oh, who's next? Oh, Spain, Italy, you know. This is the way capital moves. You can read Herbert Hoover's memoirs, chapter from 1931. Most of Europe defaulted back then too. And he said capital acted like a loose cannon on the deck of a ship, rushing from one currency to the next. So the problem with Europe is you're getting this disparity between the interest rates. And if people have no confidence in something, they sell it. That's what has been happening in France. Just call up a chart of the bunds from Germany. They peaked in 2008 and they've been in the bear market since. All right. No, the euro peaked in 2008, but I mean,
Yeah.
the bunds peaked basically intraday in 2020, but they took a crash once Schultz won in 21. So, I mean, even the problem with all the migrants and stuff, in the United States, all right, they gave all these people free health care. All right, so the cost of Medicare jumped by 60% in 1 year. All right, and so now you're impacting other people who legitimately needed health care. All right, so now you're going to, we have to cut it back. We have to do this. So you're affecting actual Americans for the migrants. Yeah. Same thing's happening in Europe. It's the way migration used to be was you had to understand the language and you had to have a skill. So most of in Britain for Brexit, the number one group that was, for Brexit were the Indians. Why? Because they had to learn English and they had to have a skill to get into Britain. Most of them are in the medical field. All right, and they go, all of a sudden you let these people in that have no skills, no language, nothing. So I understand. I can tell you what Merkel's reasoning was, although she didn't say it publicly, that with the decline in the birth rates, that these pension funds are basically Ponzi schemes. There's no real money there. They just keep, they were all based on the assumption that population will continue to increase. So you're taxing the current generation for the retired one. All right? The problem comes when the birth rate declines.
Yeah.
So then the next generation is too small to support the previous one. That's happened in Japan. It's happening, a lot of places. So the more you end up seeing people uncertain, about the future. I mean, we have 4 girls in our company. They're, maybe approaching 30. None of them want children anymore. So, there goes your birth rate.
Yeah.
I tease them. I said, well, you better save because Social Security is not going to be there for you, But it's...
Yeah, it happens all over the world, agree. In my country as well.
This is a systemic problem. And is the people that are making these decisions have zero experience in international finance or even human nature. That was the problem with communism. All right, when communism fell, and I was actually called in by the Bank of China. And I went because I wanted to go see the Great Wall. I thought I'd have to listen to a bunch of bureaucrats. But it was a very fascinating experience. They were monitoring everything, but they were not interfering. And there were like 249 varieties of tea. And there really are a lot of teas in China. All right. And the questions I was dealing with, why is this one tea selling for like $5 here but $1 here? I said, well, where's it coming from? Well, here, I said, first you have transportation costs. They go, oh, yeah, okay. I said, then somebody will pay more for one that they like better than this one. Oh, okay. So I could see why communism failed. One, if it was $1 here, it had to be $1 there if it cost you even $10 to get it there. All right, it was very inefficient. It also eliminated human nature. That's why it does not work. All right.
Yeah, and I want to hear more about the China. About the China. What about their economic slowdown? How do you see that? What's in the cards for them going forward?
Not as bad as Europe, and actually they will probably come out of this as the strongest economy in the world, even beating the United States. Why? Mainly because Germany had adopted really the old 18th century mercantile model. We build things and sell it to other people to bring money back. You can Google it and you'll see that the average wealth of a German citizen is below that of an Italian. Why? It's the strongest economy. They're so afraid of inflation that they keep their taxes very high and very regulated. All right, so that's been the problem with the European economy. The U.S. economy, what made it the biggest in the world? It was a consumer-based economy. So everybody wanted to sell something to BMWs, Mercedes, Toyotas. It was a market here that they could sell to. China has looked at both economic models. They're adopting the United States one. Look at what they're doing, recreating the Silk Road. They're desperately looking at creating a consumer-based economy for themselves. All right, so they, look, it takes time, but they understand the difference between the United States and the European model. Europe simply went, after World War II, went too much in the Marxist direction. You had the German hyperinflation took place because in 1918 there was a German Revolution, and it was the socialists, and they actually asked Russia to come take them. They wanted to join this wonderful utopia idea, and so that's been largely the problem with Europe. They put in, way too much on the socialistic side. Climate change. Now they're realizing they're being forced to back off. All right. Look at Germany. It committed economic suicide. All right. All right. U.S. blew up Nord Stream 1. Nord Stream 2 is still there, but the Germans voluntarily turned it off. All right. Germany rejected nuclear power after Japan. Merkel go, oh my God, whatever. Yeah. Shut down coal. Built windmills which don't really generate enough electricity. And has had to import gas even from the United States. All right, at much higher costs. All right, so the German economy has actually shrunk by 3%.
Yeah.
You're doing everything against, forget recession, the economy is actually shrinking. All right, if the cost of energy went too high and companies are shutting down, things of this nature, laying people off, a lot of the Volkswagen, etc. Huge protests against laying off, auto workers. But you make these mandates. You're going to have electric cars, and I can tell you, electric cars don't do well in cold. Just ask Norway. But also, if they get wet, that's it. I had a BMW i8 in the first Hurricane Helene. There was maybe 10 inches of water. It got around it. That's it. BMW says, no, we won't touch it. You just trash the car? They say, they told me they actually just threw out over 100 electric cars. If they get wet, even without salt water, nobody wants to touch it. And this is a great, thing for society? I don't think so. But the whole climate change thing, there's no real evidence of anything that fossil fuels have done this. If you read Cicero, he was complaining about the pollution and CO2 because they're burning wood. All right? The first Clean Air Act was basically Justinian at 527, AD. These things have been going on for a long time. And there's a warming period, a cold period. Rome basically exploded because the climate was getting warmer. Then it turns into cold, and then what happens? You get contracting economies, civilization falls. That's when you get plagues. There's crops don't. You can't really grow the crops. Then you get a volcano that goes off, like Krakatoa or something, in 1816, and then it was snowing in New York City in July because it throws so much ash in the air, blocks the sun. So all these things have been going on for a long time. You can't go net zero. It's just, I don't know, whoever even comes up with this stuff. All the grass, the trees, etc., they basically breathe in CO2.
Yeah.
So you want to kill all CO2, and then what we have? The Sahara Desert?
You are right, Martin. I want to touch a bit on the gold as well. How do you really see Martin Gold perform next? If the bad times are coming, and they are probably coming, like you said, do you believe that gold is basically the only hedge against the upcoming bad times?
No, not really. If you look at even the German hyperinflation, etc., it's all tangible assets survive. All right, when they came out with the Reichsmark in 1925, it was backed by real estate. All right, so it's just that your property will now be redenominated in whatever new currency you're dealing with. The advantage of gold used to be that you could just put it in a suitcase or briefcase and leave. Now they stop you on the planes. Italy, like, oh, you got too much gold jewelry on, take it off and weigh it. So they understand. Gold is one way of moving money around, so they're going after that. So a lot of people, that's why Bitcoin took off. It had nothing to do with this is going to replace the dollar, all that nonsense. Look at the volume that it came up with. It was coming out of China. The Chinese figured out, if I buy it here, I can sell it in the United States, and the money gets out of the country without going through the bank. And then China figured it out and then called in all the Bitcoin producers. And that's to some degree taking off right now. The rally in Bitcoin has been mainly to do with capital flows out of Europe this time. But, it's, gold will survive. That's anything tangible will end up doing so. It's not the only thing that will survive. Everything, your house doesn't become worthless, come up with. But, look, that's the inevitable outcome.
Do you believe that the countries, the gold is out of it's not in the system for an average guy on the street. He holds gold and it's not taxed, it's not part of the system. Do you see countries trying to get it? To get a part of his gold and tax it or some other form?
Some may. You're not going to probably be able to move with it. But you do have to realize, with Europe beating the war drums as they are, what's the risk? Just look at World War I. They shut down all the stock markets. They put in capital controls. The first thing they will do when that first bullet is fired, you're not allowed to take your money out. So that's why right now people are a bit confused. U.S. debt's going up, but the dollar's been rising. It's capital leaving. It's capital, the smart money realizes, hey, I better have some out of here, because once that first bullet is shot, you're not going to get it out. You're already going to have capital controls on it, and they always do that. Canada did it. Even in the United States in the Civil War, Lincoln shut down the gold market, and he also decreed that if, you owed a business in the South any money, you weren't allowed to pay him. So, just the history of all this stuff on capital controls with war, it's inevitable. They will always do the same thing, because governments respond only in their own self-interest. They don't care about you. They don't, they could care less. And it's all about them retaining power, and how do I do that? So it doesn't matter. You can read in Plato, there was a debate between Socrates and Thrasymachus. And Thrasymachus said, basically you're looking at, almost 3,000 years ago. He said, justice is the same in all forms of government, regardless of what you call it. If it's a monarchy, aristocrat, republic, dictatorship, whatever. It's always the self-interest of those in power. So they just make a law, just as they're doing now. Oh, hate speech. Okay, so
okay, yeah.
They can. There was even a book in the United States. Everybody commits. I forget how many. 30 felonies per day or something. Because there's so many laws that they create. They don't necessarily enforce them, but if they want you, they can. In 1893, there was a big march. It was called Coxley March on Washington during the Panic of 1893. And, that's free speech. They couldn't lock them up for that. What did they put them in jail for? Walking on the grass. You didn't see that sign? Oh, I don't care what you say, but you walked on the grass, and they broke up the rally that way. This is what they do. They always come up with one scheme for another, but at the end of the day, they don't want you talking bad about them or saying the truth or anything else. And when it's their job is on the line, sorry, that comes first.
Yeah. Martin, final question. Do you see 2025 financial markets crashing? And if yes, what will trigger that? What event first will trigger that?
Well, I think the AI side has reached a bubble top, like the dot-com bubble. All right. Um, but I mean, on our site, if you looked at the DAX, we have a tool there. You can plot it in any currency you want. The real question is, when you look at a market, is it going up in all currencies? Then it's a bull market. If it's only going up in your own currency, it's not. Okay? And so the risk here more is it's diverse around the world. We're looking more at initially stock markets rising as the currency goes down, because everything also has an international value to it. So you see gold going up, for example, in other currencies, but not necessarily in dollars. It's kind of flatlining a little bit. That's the currency side. All right, the dollar is going up. So in theory, if the dollar goes up, gold would go down in dollars. All right. So as you see European currencies decline, gold's going up to new highs in those currencies. So it's a currency play. Understand what you're actually looking at on a lot of these things. To get a bull market, like 1929 US, 1989 Tokyo, everybody's going into those markets. Why? Because the markets are going up, but also the currency. A foreigner is going to make even more money because he's making it on the market as well as the currency. All right, and this is another part of the economic theories that need to be revised. If you sell your house for €1,000,000 to another person in Croatia, nothing really happens. I come in, I say, I'll buy it for the $1,000,000. I have to bring money into Croatia. Your local money supply will increase because I'm buying a domestic asset. All right? The central bank can't control that. The only way you can control that is you start putting capital controls. All right? You can't come buy foreign, and you saw that like in Thailand after the crash, foreigners weren't allowed to buy houses, only maybe an apartment. So that you get capital controls like this. But often the politicians don't understand why things are even happening one way or another.
That's a good point.
Well, look, I've had a front row seat for over 40 years. When they were forming the G5 in 1985, I was called in. And they stand up and say, we want to lower the dollar by 40% so we can reduce the trade deficit. I even wrote to Reagan, and I said, if you do this, you're going to cause a crash. And they said, well, why would there be a crash? I said, because you sold a third of the national debt to the Japanese. Now you're going to devalue it by 40%, they're going to sell. They don't look at things internationally, all right? That was the 87 crash. I get called in for that. Then you can look at their report. At the very bottom, last page, it says, I got them that they were all saying, oh, it's computer trading, stuff like that. It was the biggest one-day crash, I think, in history. It was like 20-some%. I got them to stop that nonsense. And at the end of the report, it says, we think foreign exchange had something to do with it. All right. 1997, Robert Rubin came from Goldman Sachs, Treasury Secretary, started the same stuff. We want to see the dollar lower to help trade. I wrote to him, look, you do this, you're going to cause a crash. I'm sick and tired of it. I get called into every one of these things. Oh, okay, fine. That's the 1997 Asian currency crisis a few weeks later. You have Trump out here saying the same nonsense. Lower dollar for trade. I'm sorry, you do not understand this nonsense. If you lower the currency value, all right, oh fine, I can sell more widgets to somebody else. Nice. But you're also devaluing all the assets in your country. All right. They don't get this. And look, I've just been called into every one of these crises. I kept, Margaret Thatcher kept a pound out of the euro. When the Swiss peg was going to break, I met with the Swiss bank just, weeks before. I said, the peg is going to break. No, we think we can hold it. I said, I don't think so. History's on my side. Nobody's ever been able to do this. Peg breaks. I think they even named me foreign exchange forecaster of the year for that one. I mean, it's what happens is this, and this is my years of experience. All right. I can tell them something, but then all those people are gone. They make this mistake, they create a crash, they leave. The next crew comes in, oh, this is a good idea. All right, and they make the same mistake again. All right, individually, if you stick your finger in the flame of a candle, oh, that hurts. You're not going to keep doing it. Now you know what it is, okay? The problem is in government, they change. Like I said, I met with the people, forming the euro back in '98. We just got to get the euro in, and then we'll worry about the debt later. Well, they're all gone. Is anybody worrying about the debt? No.
Yeah.
So my conclusion, after dealing with governments completely around the world, I met with central banks from Asia to Middle East, everywhere. My conclusion is this. Government is incapable of ever learning from prior mistakes. Collectively, they are different. An individual can, but collectively a government does not. That's why history repeats, because they make the same stupid mistake all the time. And every time there is a mistake, they come in and some academic shows, oh, well, if we did this, blah, 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 right? Nobody ever asks, and I've never heard it even one single time. Has anybody ever tried this? Did it work? Yes or no? Nobody asked that question. Every investigative committee I've ever seen, nobody asked that simple question. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's give that a shot. I don't know.
Yeah.
These are some of the things I would like to see changed after 2032, that you're not allowed, politicians shouldn't even be remotely allowed to deal with the economy.
But they do.
Yeah, and that's our problem. They really didn't before socialism. And now it's like, well, vote for me and I'll steal it from this guy and I'll give it to you. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't work, and I do think maybe somebody in Trump's administration is starting to read, because I've been doing this on a lot of different podcasts and screaming at them. I did testify before Congress, the House Ways and Means Committee, on taxation and the similar problems. And they wanted to know why no American company had gotten any of the contracts in China on to build the Yellow River Dam. And I explained to them, I said, look, we tax worldwide income. Europe does not. So a German company bidding on this very same project is already 35% cheaper. And they were like, oh, really? Yes, all right. I told them that you need to lower the corporate tax rate to at least 15%. And that's what Trump is actually now saying, which is, I'm curious as to if they read my testimony or not. But the reason I said 15% because it has to be, that's where Hong Kong is. And that's why so many companies set up their headquarters there. And they left not because of, oh, gee, I'm going to pay this guy $2 an hour versus $5 over here. That's not the issue. The issue is the taxation and everything else. When I met with Margaret Thatcher, I was restructuring all the Japanese companies, and the ones that needed skilled labor, like the auto manufacturers, I was sticking them in Britain. And I did happen to know her personal advisor, Sir Alan Walters. And she says, there's this rumor about this guy sending companies to Britain. He says, yeah, that's Marty. Oh, you know him? That's how I got to meet her. And she was very smart. She's probably the smartest politician I ever encountered. She said to me, why are you doing this? I said, look, if I put them in Germany, the cost of socialized programs on top of the labor was 40% higher than Britain. And she said, really? I said, yes. So it's not that I'm paying $2 here and $5 there to this guy. It's all the regulations and everything else that's on top of it. So it was just better. I mean, look, there was a strike in France, and they kidnapped the head of the CEO and his family until he agreed to a raise. And the French basically, oh, well, that's just the unions, we don't interfere. Kidnapped them.
Yeah, the world is crazy, Martin. The world is crazy. We can agree on that, definitely.
We have to understand where we're going. And we are heading towards a major readjustment.
Readjustment, yeah. You put it mildly, readjusted.
Yeah, I mean, look, the things we've spoken about here, about never paying off the debts, borrowing year after year after year. The crash comes when you cannot sell the new debt to pay off the old. That's when the whole house of cards comes down. Japan just dumped $53 billion of European debt. Why? Because you're beating the war drums at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, you're threatening to go into war with Russia. Very nice. Okay. Why should anybody buy your debt? European assets will decline. Foreign capital will flee. You know, don't you understand these are the things that actually happen when you go into war?
The signals are definitely here. Let's wrap it up with this. Martin, I want to thank you for coming to my show. It was a great chat as always. I always learned a lot from you, and we will meet again.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Always trying to, spread the word so more people to understand.